I'm Eliza Fleming, a 32-year-old who grew up in the shadow of a spotlight that never seemed to find me. That spotlight always followed my older sister Vanessa, illuminating her every move while I remained in the darkness behind her. Our suburban Boston home was constantly bustling with relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins from every branch of the family tree. They'd descend upon our backyard gatherings like eager fans at a concert, ostensibly for my mother's famous barbecue, but really to witness another of Vanessa's impromptu performances. Our backyard transformed into an unofficial stage, with its meticulously maintained lawn and towering oak tree forming a natural theater backdrop. Richard, my father, would man the grill with practiced expertise, the aroma of charcoal and sizzling meat wafting through the air, while Diana, my mother, flitted among the guests ensuring everyone's glasses remained full. "Vanessa, darling," Aunt Marge would inevitably call out, her voice slicing through the ambient chatter. "Why don't you grace us with one of your songs?" Like clockwork, all attention would pivot toward my sister. Vanessa would gracefully mount a chair, her golden curls catching the sunlight, a spark of showmanship in her eyes. With a theatrical clearing of her throat, she'd begin her performance. "My Heart Will Go On," she'd sing, her Celine Dion impression bringing the backyard to a standstill. The assembled relatives would erupt in enthusiastic applause, as if witnessing a professional concert rather than a family gathering. Richard and Diana would exchange proud glances, my father frequently wiping away tears of pride. Meanwhile, I'd press myself against the fence, wishing I could disappear completely. It wasn't that I didn't yearn to participate, I did. But when I attempted to sing, the sounds resembled a wounded animal. And public speaking? Impossible. Words would tangle hopelessly in my mouth, leaving me flushed with embarrassment and stumbling over syllables. I'd overhear relatives whispering that I was nothing like Vanessa. The comparison wasn't limited to extended family, my parents made the hierarchy crystal clear. While Vanessa was chauffeured between dance recitals, vocal coaching, and art workshops, I was left to entertain myself. Not that this solitude was entirely unwelcome. I discovered refuge in the worn medical textbooks that populated our bookshelves. In this family of performers, only Aunt Teresa, a retired nurse of 74, seemed to recognize something valuable in my quieter nature. She'd discover me hiding in my various sanctuaries, behind the shed or in my treehouse retreat absorbed in my reading. "What medical mystery are you solving today, Eliza?" she'd ask, settling her arthritic frame beside me with a knowing smile. Looking up, I'd feel genuine relief at her presence. "I'm reading about the circulatory system," I'd explain, displaying my latest borrowed library book. Teresa would examine it with genuine interest. "You've got healing hands and a sharp mind, girl. Don't let anyone convince you that's worth any less than a pretty voice." These conversations with Teresa felt like oxygen when I was drowning. She never demanded performances or expected me to be anyone but myself. With her, I could simply exist as Eliza, the thoughtful, studious girl who found more comfort in medical diagrams than in family celebrations. But despite how I treasured these quiet moments of validation, they couldn't completely neutralize the pain of being the invisible daughter. Every time Vanessa mastered another song or claimed another trophy, my parents lavished her with rewards: designer clothes, cutting-edge electronics, whatever she desired. Vanessa received everything. And me? I got her discarded possessions and exasperated sighs when I expressed interest in medical books instead of makeup. School became my sanctuary. While I wasn't exactly Miss Popularity, I found my groove in the classroom. I wasn't content to just sit there and let the lessons wash over me. No, I was determined to understand every single thing the teachers said. "Mrs. Thompson," I'd say after class, my voice quiet but steady, "could you explain that bit about patient care protocols again? I didn't quite get it." She'd smile, obviously pleased by my interest. "Of course, Eliza. Why don't we go over it together?" If a teacher couldn't spare the time, I'd ask for book recommendations. Soon my backpack was always bulging with extra reading material. I'd stay up late, poring over those books, my eyes burning with exhaustion but my mind hungry for knowledge about medical care techniques. all that hard work paid off. By the time I hit high school, I was top of my class. For once in my life, I was the best at something. My heart swelled with pride when teachers used my work as examples. I even made a few friends, other dedicated students who didn't mind my quiet ways. As graduation approached, our house became Vanessa Central. Mom was constantly helping her put together her portfolio for the advertising and PR program at some fancy private college. "Oh honey, this campaign idea is perfect," Diana would gush, looking at Vanessa's work. "You're so talented. You'll be running an agency in no time." I'd roll my eyes and retreat to my room, my stomach knotting with frustration as I buried myself in my studies. But one night, during yet another family dinner devoted to Vanessa's college plans, something in me snapped. "I'm going to medical care school too," I blurted out, my heart pounding against my ribs. "And then I want to study business management." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, to my shock and hurt, they all burst out laughing, the sound cutting through me like a knife. "Oh sweetie," Mom said, wiping tears of amusement from her eyes, "we don't have money for that. You'll need to get a job after graduation to help with the bills. You're just not as gifted as your sister." I felt like I'd been slapped. But I'm the top student in my class," I stammered, my face burning with anger and embarrassment. "I get straight A's. I've been studying medical care for years." I stormed up to my room and came back with my report card, slamming it on the table. They all leaned in to look, their eyes widening in surprise. "Well, I'll be damned," Richard muttered, scratching his head. "When did this happen?" "It's been happening for years," I spat, my hands trembling with rage. "Not that any of you ever noticed. Mom at least had the decency to look ashamed." "Eliza, we had no idea dash." But Dad cut her off. "Look, it doesn't change anything. We've spent all our savings on Vanessa's education and our medical bills. There's nothing left for you, Eliza. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. You'll go to work as a care aide at my cousin Frank's nursing home after graduation. We need your income." I turned and ran, ignoring their calls. I sprinted up the stairs into my room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. As I collapsed onto my bed, sobs racking my body, I felt something inside me harden. Fine, I thought, my hands clenching into fists. If they won't help me, I'll find another way. I'll show them all what Eliza can do. The next few months were a blur. Vanessa headed off to college, her departure marked by tearful goodbyes and proud parental embraces. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor, my determination burning like a fire inside me. During this time, I found myself spending more and more time with Aunt Teresa. Her small, cozy apartment became my refuge from the tension at home. One afternoon, as we sat in her sunlit kitchen sipping tea, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "So, Eliza," she said, her kind eyes fixed on me, "what are your plans after graduation?" I stared into my teacup, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over. I don't know, Aunt Teresa. Mom and Dad won't help me with medical care school. They say there's no money left after paying for Vanessa's education and Dad's medical bills. Teresa was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Eliza, dear, I've got some savings from my nursing career. I'd like to give them to you for school. You've got real talent for caring for people, and I'll be damned if I let those skills of yours go to waste." The reality of her words hit me like a tidal wave. I burst into tears, the warmth of hope spreading through my chest. "Thank you," I sobbed, throwing my arms around her. "Thank you so much, Aunt Teresa." The months flew by, and before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation, diploma in hand, my heart racing with pride. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Teresa beaming at me. My parents were there too, looking proud but uncomfortable. That evening, as I pored over medical care program brochures, Diana walked in. "Eliza, honey," she said, her voice syrupy sweet, "your father's cousin Frank called. He's got a care aide position for you at his nursing home." Isn't that exciting? The pay is good, and we could really use the extra income for our bills. I took a deep breath, my stomach tightening with anxiety. Actually, Mom, I won't be needing that job. I'm going to medical care school. Richard appeared in the doorway, frowning deeply. And how exactly do you plan to pay for that? You know we're still paying off my medical bills. Aunt Teresa is helping me, I said, my chin held high despite my trembling hands. She's giving me her savings for tuition. The shocked silence that followed was almost comical. Then, to my disbelief, Dad's face turned red with anger. Absolutely not. He bellowed. If Teresa's got money to spare, it should go toward our family expenses. Vanessa needs a car for her internship at that advertising agency after she graduates next year. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you serious? I spat, my voice tight with disbelief. This is my chance to get an education, to make something of myself. Don't be selfish, Eliza, Diana chimed in. Your father's health and your sister's career needs come first. You're the practical one in the family. We need you. No, I said, my voice shaking but firm. This is my money now, and I'm using it for medical care school. End of discussion. From that moment on, life at home became unbearable. My parents either ignored me completely or snapped at me over the smallest things. The tension was suffocating, like a thick fog that filled every room I entered. After a particularly nasty argument about my selfish decision, I called Aunt Teresa in tears and told her everything. Pack your bags, sweetheart, she said without hesitation, her voice steady and reassuring. You're moving in with me. The next day, I stuffed everything I owned into a cab and drove away, my heart pounding as I watched my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. As I pulled up to Aunt Teresa's apartment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, replaced by a surge of hopeful anticipation. The summer flew by in a whirlwind of preparation, and before I knew it, I was juggling daytime classes at the medical care program and evening business management courses. Thanks to my stellar grades and Aunt Teresa's generosity, I'd gotten into both programs I'd dreamed of. My first day of classes, I felt like I was floating on air. As I sat in my patient care fundamentals lecture, drinking in every word, my fingers tingling with excitement as I took detailed notes, I couldn't help but think, I made it. I'm really here. Meanwhile, Vanessa was starting her senior year at her fancy private college. I hadn't heard much from her or my parents since I'd moved out, but I tried not to let it bother me. I was too busy reveling in my newfound freedom and the challenge of balancing my medical training with night business classes. But then, about a month into the semester, Aunt Teresa called me. Eliza, dear, she said, her voice hesitant, I think you should sit down for this. My heart raced as she filled me in on the family drama I'd missed. Apparently, Vanessa had shown up at home out of the blue, announcing she'd been put on academic probation. The reason? She was pregnant. According to Aunt Teresa, Vanessa had been flippant about the whole thing. Oh, don't worry, she'd said, tossing her hair. Jake's family is loaded. We'll be getting married soon, and I won't need a degree anyway. But the story didn't end there. It turned out Vanessa's boyfriend wasn't as committed as she thought. When he found out she'd been seeing his fraternity brother too, all hell broke loose. Now they don't even know who the father is, Aunt Teresa sighed. And your parents are beside themselves about the medical bills piling up. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, my stomach churning as I tried to process it all. Part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. The golden child had fallen from her pedestal. But mostly, I just felt sad for Vanessa and the mess she'd gotten herself into. The saga continued over the next few months. Aunt Teresa kept me updated on all the gossip from the family gatherings I no longer attended. When Vanessa's baby was born, a DNA test confirmed her boyfriend was indeed the father. But instead of the fairy tale wedding Vanessa had envisioned, he simply agreed to pay minimal child support. The final blow came when Vanessa, desperate for work with a newborn, took a job as a care aide at Uncle Frank's nursing home, the very job my parents had tried to force on me. As I hung up the phone, I felt a whirlwind of emotions crashing through me. There was a small, petty part of me that wanted to gloat, to rub my success in my family's faces. But mostly, I just felt a profound sense of gratitude for where I was and how far I'd come. The years flew by in a blur of lectures, exams, and late-night study sessions. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation, my hard-earned dual degrees in medical care and business management clutched tightly in my hand, my heart swelling with pride. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Teresa beaming at me, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. Thanks to my top grades and glowing recommendations from my professors, I landed a job as a manager at the Gilded Fork, one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city that was pioneering a program for senior-friendly dining experiences. My medical background and business acumen made me uniquely qualified, and the salary was more than I'd ever dreamed of. For the first time in my life, I felt truly valued. With my first paycheck, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I marched into the electronics store, excitement bubbling in my chest, and bought the latest smartphone for Aunt Teresa. Her face lit up when I presented it to her. "Oh, Eliza," she gasped, turning the sleek device over in her hands. "This is too much." I grinned, already pulling out my own phone. "Not at all. You invested in my future, and now I get to do something for you. Now let me show you how to use it." Over the next few weeks, I taught Aunt Teresa the ins and outs of social media. She took to it like a duck to water, especially loving Instagram's photo feature. Soon her page was filled with pictures of her garden, her cat, and her infamous apple pie in various stages of creation. I'd scroll through her posts during my lunch breaks, my heart warming as I always made sure to leave a comment or a like. It was our way of staying connected, even when work kept me busy. One day, as I was reviewing the week's special menu for our senior patrons, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, my stomach tightening as I saw my mother's name on the screen. "Eliza," her voice was hesitant, we were hoping you might come over to talk. "Your father isn't doing well." After a long pause, my mind racing with conflicting emotions, I agreed. That Sunday, I found myself standing on the porch of my childhood home, my hand hovering over the doorbell. Before I could press it, the door swung open. "Eliza." Diana pulled me into a tight hug. "Oh, sweetie, it's so good to see you. You look amazing." Inside, I found my father, Vanessa, and a toddler I assumed was my nephew. The atmosphere was tense, but not hostile like I'd feared. "You look good, kiddo," Richard said, his voice gruff but warm, though I couldn't help noticing how much he'd aged. "We hear you're doing well for yourself at that fancy restaurant." I nodded, still wary, feeling the old familiar knot in my stomach. "I am. I'm a senior care program manager at the Gilded Fork now. We design special menus and service approaches for elderly patrons." Their eyes widened at the name of the restaurant. Mom cleared her throat. That's wonderful, dear. Actually, that's part of why we wanted to talk to you." Over the next hour, they apologized for how they'd treated me, their words flowing easily as they admitted they'd been wrong to dismiss my potential. Then came the real reason for the reunion. "Eliza," Diana said, glancing at Vanessa, "we were hoping, well, with your father's medical bills and everything, we were wondering if you might be able to help Vanessa get a job at your restaurant." I looked at my sister, bouncing her son Ethan on her knee. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "I'll see what I can do," I said finally, conflicted feelings churning inside me. "No promises, but I'll ask." True to my word, I spoke to Harrison Mitchell, the restaurant owner, about Vanessa. To my surprise, he agreed to give her a shot as an administrator. Vanessa started the following week, her gratitude evident in her nervous smile. I watched her closely, half expecting her to fail or cause drama. But to my shock, she excelled. She was punctual, efficient, and the customers loved her charm. As the weeks passed, I found myself relaxing around her. We weren't best friends by any means, but we developed a cordial working relationship. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, the universe decided to throw me another curveball, this time, a positive one. Harrison Mitchell called me into his office one day. My heart raced, wondering if I'd done something wrong. Instead, he grinned at me and said, "Eliza, how would you like to help me expand our senior care dining concept?" Before I knew it, I was overseeing the opening of not one, but 3 new restaurant locations with specialized senior care dining services. My days became a whirlwind of staff meetings, menu tastings with nutritional considerations, and number crunching. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and my medical knowledge combined with business skills made me the perfect person to lead this innovative concept. The promotion came with a significant pay bump, and suddenly I found myself with more money than I knew what to do with. My bank account swelled in a way I'd never imagined possible. That's when the calls from my parents started. At first, it was just small things. "Your father's medical insurance won't cover his new prescription," Diana would say, her voice hesitant. "We were wondering if you might be able to help out a little." I was surprised at how good it felt to say yes, to be able to solve their problems with a simple transfer of funds. It started with the prescriptions, then it was specialized medical equipment, and before long, I was funding a complete home renovation to make it more accessible for Dad's declining mobility. As their financial situation improved thanks to my monthly allowance, the infamous family parties started up again. But this time, when I attended, things were different. "Have you heard about Eliza's latest project?" Mom would gush to the relatives. "She's opening a new restaurant with special menus for seniors with dietary restrictions. We're so proud of her." I'd catch Vanessa's eye across the room, and she'd give me a small smile. She was doing well too, having been promoted to head administrator at the Gilded Fork, though I felt the weight of knowing how much her success depended on my recommendation. "My girls," Richard would say, an arm around each of us. Both of them making their old man proud. Part of me wanted to be bitter, to remind them of how they'd treated me before, the sting of their dismissal still fresh in my memory. But a larger part reveled in the warmth of their approval, something I'd craved for so long despite knowing its conditional nature. As I drove home that night, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. Finally, after all these years, I had what I'd always wanted: success in my career and the seeming love and appreciation of my family. I was the golden child now, but better than that, I was my own woman, standing on my own 2 feet. Still, something about their sudden change of heart made me uneasy. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon when my world came crashing down around me. I was scrolling through Instagram, sipping my coffee, when I saw that Aunt Teresa had started a live video. It was from one of the family gatherings I'd missed due to work commitments. Smiling, I clicked play, expecting to see the usual scenes of laughter and merriment. What I saw instead made my blood run cold. There, in living color, were my parents, their faces flushed with alcohol and self-righteousness. Diana was gesticulating wildly, her voice slurred but unmistakable. And Eliza, that ungrateful little freeloader, she was saying, her words stabbing through me like ice picks. "She barely gives us anything. We need more for Richard's treatments, you know." Dad chimed in, his face red. "That's right. We're doing just fine thanks to our Vanessa. She's the one keeping that fancy restaurant organized. Eliza just got lucky with her medical mumbo-jumbo. Anyone can learn that stuff." The live stream continued with various relatives nodding along, some even adding their own criticisms. "That care work she does isn't real talent like Vanessa's people skills," one uncle added. Vanessa sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable but not contradicting them. As the video ended, I sat there, stunned, my coffee forgotten as tears welled in my eyes. How could they? After everything I'd done for them, all the money I'd given them for medical bills and home renovations, how could they turn around and say such awful, untrue things? With shaking hands, I scrolled down to the comments. There, I saw a stream of messages from my parents. "Teresa, end this live stream right now. You had no right to broadcast this. Take it down immediately." But Aunt Teresa's response made me burst into tears. "I don't know how to delete Instagram lives, and even if I did, I wouldn't." It's time everyone saw the truth about how you treat Eliza. She's the one supporting you through her hard work, paying for Richard's medical care, and this is how you repay her kindness. Shame on you both. I sat there for what felt like hours, replaying the video, reading and rereading the comments. The betrayal cut deep, my chest aching as if physically wounded, reopening emotional scars I thought had long since healed. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed Aunt Teresa's number. "Oh, Eliza dear," she said when she answered, her voice full of sympathy. "I take it you've seen the Instagram Live?" "Yeah," I choked, my voice raw from crying. "I can't believe it, Aunt Teresa. How could they say my medical care knowledge isn't real talent?" I could hear the anger in her voice as she replied, "They've always been like this, Eliza. You just haven't been around to see it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but maybe it's for the best. You deserve to know the truth about how they value your contributions." We talked for hours, Aunt Teresa comforting me as I cycled through shock, anger, and grief. As night fell, I made a decision, my mind suddenly clear despite the emotional turmoil. "I'm cutting them off," I told Aunt Teresa, my voice firm despite the pain in my heart. "No more money, no more help with Dad's medical bills. They made their bed, now they can lie in it." The days following the Instagram Live revelation were some of the hardest of my life. My phone buzzed constantly with messages and calls from my parents, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Their words, so cruel and dismissive of my medical care knowledge, played on a loop in my mind. Finally, after a week of silence, I sent them a brief, cold text. "I've seen the Instagram Live. I know what you really think of my career and contributions. Don't contact me again. The money for Dad's medical bills stops now." Their responses came flooding in immediately. At first, they were apologetic. "Eliza, sweetie, we're so sorry. We didn't mean any of it. Please forgive us. Your father needs his medication." But as the days passed and I maintained my silence, their tune changed. "We're your parents. Your father is sick. You're a healthcare professional. You have an obligation to help us." Each message twisted the knife deeper, but I stood firm, my resolve strengthening despite the pain. I'd given them chance after chance, and they'd thrown it all back in my face. It was time to break the cycle of financial dependency. Vanessa, surprisingly, stayed out of it. At work, she was the model employee, efficient and professional. If she harbored any resentment over the loss of our parents' financial support, she didn't show it. Our interactions remained cordial but distant. "I'm not taking sides," she told me one day after a staff meeting, her eyes betraying a conflict I hadn't seen before. "It's between you and them. But I understand why you're doing this." I nodded, appreciating her unexpected empathy, even if part of me wished she'd stand up for me more openly. But I understood she had her own child to think about now. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself leaning heavily on Aunt Teresa. Our Sunday video calls became the highlight of my week. She'd regale me with stories from her garden or her latest community volunteer work, providing a much-needed dose of normality in the chaos my life had become. "You're doing the right thing, Eliza," she'd assure me when doubts crept in. "Your care work is valuable. Don't let them manipulate you anymore or devalue your skills." To my surprise, other relatives began reaching out too. Cousin Sarah, who'd always been kind to me at family gatherings, sent me a heartfelt email. "I saw the Instagram Live. I want you to know I think you're amazing, Eliza. Your medical knowledge and business success are incredible. What you've achieved, how you've helped seniors with your special dining program, you're an inspiration. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Uncle Bob, Dad's brother, called me out of the blue. "Kid, I've watched you grow up and become this incredible woman. Your parents are fools if they can't see how special your care work is. You've got family in your corner, remember that." These messages of support were like a balm to my wounded heart. I realized that while I might have lost my parents' approval, I'd gained a family who appreciated me for who I truly was. As the year drew to a close, Harrison Mitchell called me into his office. I went in nervous, wondering if the family drama had somehow affected my work performance. Instead, he smiled broadly and said, "Eliza, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO of the restaurant group." I stood there, shocked into silence. Finally, I managed to stammer out, "Are you sure?" He nodded, his eyes twinkling. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You've earned this, Eliza. Your unique combination of medical care knowledge and business acumen has transformed our business. Your senior care dining concept has become our most profitable division. It's time you took the reins." As I left his office, my head spinning with possibilities, I realized something profound. The little girl who'd been overlooked and underestimated, whose medical care skills were dismissed as something anyone could do, had grown into a woman who'd surpassed everyone's expectations, including her own.